Deviation's new PlayStation exclusive first-person shooter from several ex-Call of Duty developers, as well as the dude who created Call of Duty Zombies, is now cancelled. This game, on top of Naughty Dog's The Last of Us Online, Insomniac's Spider-Man The Great Web, Firesprite's Twisted Metal, and London Studios' Fantasy Online game set in the city of London, marks 5 different live service games that have now been cancelled. And from my perspective, PlayStation's strategy and endeavors for this generation must be questioned, as it seemed that games as a service would be a significant part of their future. Gird up your loins and let's talk PlayStation. Hello friends, Hansen here, and welcome back to Int Media, my video games analysis YouTube channel. Fellas, as always, it is a joy to be with you today to talk PlayStation, as it's a core focus of what I love to cover here on this channel. I've also been pumping out some videos recently covering From Software, more particularly a video covering From Software's history with PlayStation, as well as a video where I analyze the core reason why I think the Souls series is great. If either of those sound appealing to you, please consider checking those out on my channel. But that's enough sleazy self-promotion. We have important shit to discuss, and frankly, I'm going to be critical of our old pal PlayStation in this video, so without further nonsensical rambling, let's get to the task at hand. PlayStation, Sony Interactive Entertainment, Jim Ryan, what the hell happened? As I said at the beginning of this video, we are looking at a reality where a significant percentage of the efforts from prominent PlayStation teams like Naughty Dog and Insomniac, as well as other potential talents in London Studio, Firesprite, and Deviation, have all been for naught. If you're not aware, the common overlap between all of these games is that the teams working on these games were working on, in different capacities, live service games, otherwise known as games as a service, which are games like Fortnite, Apex Legends, Grand Theft Auto Online, and so on and so forth. With the confirmation that Deviation's first-person shooter, which is a genre that's sorely needed in the PlayStation ecosystem, that was being made by ex-Call of Duty developer, the guy that made Zombies, and would have been exclusive to the PlayStation ecosystem, is now cancelled, and the studio has effectively been closed on top of all that, we now have confirmation that 5 live service games are dead in the water, which is effectively half of the former dozen that PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan claimed were in development. So what does this mean? Well, I think that it means a lot of different things, but from a broad perspective, here's a few takeaways. For starters, this must mean that PlayStation has very likely wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on this endeavor. While what I just said may seem very doom and gloom, I would like to back up and point out the fact that the future may not be as dark as it seems. PlayStation just launched a very successful and quite frankly zeitgeist-capturing live service game in Helldivers 2. This game, in many ways, is a solid step in the right direction in the live service space if PlayStation wants to continue to support it, and if people, the players, keep playing it. This is kind of the tricky part when it comes to these sorts of games, as we all know it's a little bit difficult to maintain and retain people's attention spans in the year of our Lord 2024. I do want to go on the record here of saying that I think Helldivers 2 is a very versatile game. What I mean by that is that Arrowhead, the developers, could add many things to the game to try to increase engagement, including new missions, enemy types, and crossovers. Personally, I would love if major PlayStation franchises began to appear in Helldivers 2. Like, imagine fighting the Infected from The Last of Us, or fighting the Hellghast from Killzone, or something like that. And on a completely unrelated note, I could really see this game benefiting from some sort of Dune crossover, and that might be a shot in the dark, but imagine having to run from like the Sandworms or something in Helldivers with the boys, or being tasked to fight the Harkonnens. It all just sounds pretty cool, at least in my imagination. Here's the last thing I'll say about Helldivers 2. With this endeavor, it feels like PlayStation PlayStation got its bachelor's degree in games as a service when their long-term strategic goal is to get their PhD and use this knowledge to make a game that's just as big as Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto Online, games that are currently making millions of dollars a week. While Helldivers 2 is definitely a successful endeavor, I think Sony's investment into making this type of game is not to make games like Helldivers 2, although I'm certain that Sony is going to buy Arrowhead, the developer of Helldivers, if they haven't done so already. Additionally, it seems that PlayStation is converting many of its legacy franchises into games as a service, like Gran Turismo and MLB The Show, both of which feature microtransactions and continuously receive new content updates on a regular basis. And let us not forget that there's still several live service PlayStation games that are in the pipeline. And here's what I'm tracking. I'm tracking Concord, Fair Games, Destiny the Final Shape, Marathon, the Horizon MMO that PlayStation is making in conjunction with the Guild Wars 2 publisher NCSoft, and finally the X-Men live service game that we know about from the Insomniac leaks, although I must say that I'm not sure if this game is still going to come out given that Spider-Man The Great Web is cancelled, and this would have served as some sort of test bed for Insomniac, I imagine, because Insomniac would also be making the X-Men live service game. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a pretty solid understanding of the current state of PlayStation's live service titles that are still in development or the ones that are already out. And I've got to say that this is quite a mixed bag, because let's get back to the 5 canceled PlayStation Studios games. So I am personally very bummed out about Factions, The Last of Us Online, as Naughty Dog has now called it. I'm very bummed about this being canceled in particular because I love Factions, the multiplayer mode that was included in The Last of Us, the 2013 PlayStation 3 game, as well as The Last of Us Remastered, which arguably had its most significant audience, given that that was the more technically superior version of the game, given that it's running on the PlayStation 4. But this was a big bummer because I think that this game to this day has a solid player base. People are still playing that game to this day. If you just jump online and go check it out, you'll see that. And I genuinely think that it was kind of a mistake to just kind of cancel that game outright. I know that Naughty Dog is typically very protective over their games and over their projects, but I really think that bringing in some sort of support studio just to be able to support this game would really have served PlayStation and Sony dividends here. And out of all of the live service games that were currently in development, this was the one that I think that definitely had the best chance. Like, when I think of Fair Games and Concord in comparison to this game, I feel like those games just are kind of a fart in the wind compared to this, in all honesty. I honestly don't know much about, and none of us do, about the Deviation canceled first-person shooter, and I guess that game was not at all where it needed to be in terms of quality checks and stuff, because Sony pulled their funding over a year ago at this point when it comes to this game. But I do think that that's a genre that PlayStation definitely needs to work into their regular releases, the first-person shooter that being. Now it also says, and there was a trailer leaked recently for Spider-Man The Great Web. Now this is, I honestly am happy that this particular game got canceled because it the trailer seemed pretty strange. And I don't really know how that game would work in a live service format necessarily. But nonetheless, I do think that that was a good decision given the workload that Insomniac has put out recently and all that they have upcoming. And these last 2 games in Twisted Metal and London Studios' Fantasy Online game, that's going to be set in the city of London. I really don't care about those, to be honest. I don't know if Twisted Metal has much of an audience today. I guess you could make the argument that because of the Peacock series, they might have a chance with that game. But at the same time, I really kind of doubt it. I don't think people are really into vehicular combat games in a lot of different ways. And this London Studios game, like, I've heard Blood and Truth was a good game, the VR game, but to see London Studio do anything like a fantasy online game, I don't have anything to be excited there because I haven't really played any of their stuff, and I just don't really think we have much to go off of. I did play a good bit of fucking SingStar back in the day, and let me tell you, I do like singing, but not so much as a video game nowadays, I don't think. And just to cap this off, I mean, you have to imagine this is probably the worst thing. These two concepts I'm going to touch on here, the wasted time and wasted money that was spent on these games, I think is something that is a huge hit to the PlayStation ecosystem's developers, to PlayStation Studios. I think it's a massive, I don't want to say oversight, because I think that this was an important initiative to really get the ball rolling on, but at the same time, I mean, it's a lot of time and money wasted, so it's definitely important to analyze this and be critical of it, because it's a bad move and it doesn't look good. But finally, fellas, I'll conclude by leaving you with this, a challenge to consider Sony's perspective in all of this. If PlayStation's long-term endeavors pay off, we may see a future when they do in fact make a game that's just as big as a Fortnite, as a Roblox, or as a Grand Theft Auto Online. And then the money that these sort of games will print will vastly outweigh the potential hundreds of millions of dollars of unrecouped costs from these canceled projects. In other words, $100 million will be a drop in the bucket compared to what could await them if these endeavors pay off. And that's why they're doing what they're doing. But still, man, 5 canceled games and tons of years, honestly, of developers' wasted time. That's pretty fucking terrible, especially when considering the opportunity cost represented by the time that was wasted on these 5 canceled games. Especially the Last of Us Online, man. That one bums me the heck out to this very day, but, you know, what are you gonna do? Anyways, fellas, that is all I've got today. Please let me know what you think about what I've said here today, and I look forward to what's coming for this channel in the future. This is Hansen with Ent Media, out.